Good morning, everyone. Hope y'all are doing well. And I'm going to start out, with talking about the flooding that's happening, been happening. And man, hearts and prayers go out to all these flood victims in the Midwest, Chicago, Wisconsin. And last night I found out about Chattanooga. Actually, very early this morning, I found out about Chattanooga, Tennessee. And wow, I've been dealing with a little bit of this rain on the roads. It's very weird. It's like it's tropical storm rains. It comes down real hard and heavy for a few minutes. Then it kind of lets up a little bit. It might even stop. And then it starts up again. Very, very strange. So, this isn't what this whole message is going to be about. But this is just what's on my heart now and what's on my mind with just getting up and getting my day started and whatnot here in a little bit. Uh, this flash flooding, man, it can happen anywhere at any time. Very dangerous. People just, you really have to be on your guard. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to hydroplane. It doesn't take much to just be stuck in a situation you can't get out of. So, if people are on the roads, you're traveling, you have to, drive a good distance to and from work or what have you. Just be on your guard, be aware. Um, if you don't have good tires, like I said before, probably several weeks ago, I guess this is kind of the dad in me. What can I say? But just the protector in me, or what have you, defender, I guess. But um, if you don't have good brakes on your vehicle and you don't have good tires, I really wouldn't risk it. Very easy to hydroplane. You got to have really good tread on your tires. Uh, you know, because you could wind up in a ditch. You could wind up going off an embankment. It could get bad quick. This water could just basically just knock you right off the road. I mean, so just be aware of all of that. It'd almost be like being in a boat or something, and your tires are you're just basically floating above the water, and it takes you wherever it wants to take you, like a current. So I just wouldn't risk it. If you don't have good brakes, you don't have good tires in your vehicles, I just wouldn't risk it. Because this flash flooding, can occur anywhere at any time. I was listening to Eric Hale's message yesterday, catastrophes, and sure enough, and it was a shorter one. It was like 40 minutes long or something. But sure enough, he puts that message out, and then this morning I wake up and one of the very first things I see is flooding in Chattanooga. And I was like, wow, it doesn't take long, it doesn't take much. But like I said, that's not really what this whole thing is about. It's just kind of what's on my heart and mind. It's going to be probably a little longer because I got a few things to talk about. A few things I've been paying attention to. A few things that I've been, you know, listening to. Some articles I've been reading and so forth over the last several days. Just kind of putting it all together here. Um, just all the disasters. Looks like train derailments are in the news again. I guess in Texas, like a 35, uh, what is it, car? I guess train derailed, and hazmat crew deployed, and people are paying attention. You know about all this stuff. You know about what they're doing in D.C., what they want to do to the other cities, and what can I say? You know, what can I say? We were warned. We were told. We've been warned and told for years, and now it's upon us. You know, but the main the main gist, the main purpose of this message, and the thing I'm going to call it is the company you keep, because that is what I keep seeing over and over and over again. And you talk about desperation. This is my opinion. People can agree, disagree. I said before, we're all adults here. I'm just sharing what's on my heart and mind about certain things. But you talk about desperation. I see these people that have had these big name ministries and been behind the pulpit a long time, and now they're constantly being exposed, just like what was warned about by Benjamin Faircloth and other people. Exposure is coming. Even made a video or a message called Exposure. Exposure is coming. Exposure is coming. Exposure is coming. It had been happening, and now it's like constant, all the time. All these people are being exposed. They're all being, put into the light that they don't want to be in. You know, um, I would say the majority are guilty of sin. There may be some so-called innocent ones out there, falsely accused or what have you, but from what I could tell, and because of their reaction, their response when they're being exposed, they just dig their heels in and they just make excuses, and then they want to accuse the accuser. And it's interesting to watch the reaction, because it's the reaction of desperate people, because they don't want to lose what in their mind they've worked so hard to gain over the years with a big name ministry, a big name channel, a big name whatever, that they built their castle on sand. They built this their own kingdom up, and it's falling, it's crumbling all around them, and they don't know what to do. What they should do is repent and step down. And, you know, there's one that I could think of, only one out of I don't know how many, that actually did that. And I don't even know what he was concerned about being exposed about, or maybe he was just a man of honor and integrity, and he knew that he had to get some things right. There were some things he needed to deal with, and he stepped down. He stepped down from the pulpit. He stepped down from his ministry, and he openly admitted that he had some things that he needed to deal with, and he stepped down. Maybe he was about to be exposed for something. I don't know. Or maybe, like I said, he was just a man of honor and integrity, and he realized that he'd be a hypocrite, or, if he kept preaching, if he stayed behind the pulpit, and if he continued his ministry. And the only person I can think of that I'm aware of, if other people are aware, please leave a comment, let me know. Because out of all the things that I'm seeing, all the big names, all the big ministries, there's only one man I can think of that chose to do the right thing. Out of the big names, like I said, big name people, big name ministries, and that was Tony Evans. He's the only one I can think of. Like I said, if there's more, please let me know. Please, because we need to, you know, give people credit for doing the right things, just like people get exposed for doing the wrong things, and doing the evil things. The people that are doing the right things, they need credit. They deserve the credit for being a man of honor and integrity, or a woman of honor and integrity. He's the only one I'm aware of. Just him. Not aware of anyone else. But this is why I'm doing this, though. And, I did do a video, Monday, but I didn't upload it because I just didn't. I didn't like how it turned out, and it could have easily been misinterpreted and misconstrued, and I just didn't want to. I just didn't feel right about it, so I left it I left it for my own purposes, you know, um, for myself to look back on, you know. But I didn't upload it publicly because, like I said, I just didn't. Sometimes, you know, if you just don't like the way something turns out, or it just doesn't feel right, it's like, I think I'm not gonna do this. I think I'm gonna go ahead and just keep it for my own purposes, you know, so something I can look back on if I need to later on down the road or something, just to remind me of some certain things, but nothing for public consumption, you know. But this morning, I saw something from guy's name is Sean, Revealing Truth channel, which I thought he does a very good job on a lot of his videos. I may not agree with everything he says and you know all the things that he does on his video platform, but the majority I think he does a really good job on his videos, on his channel Revealing Truth. And good old Perry Stone is out there again. And Perry Stone, he's out of Cleveland, Tennessee, and I can't recall right now how far that is from Chattanooga, but I don't think it's that far. But anyway, I'd have to look it up. But I think they're kind of in the same general location, uh, not too far from each other. But anyway, Perry's out there again, and he's been out there for a while, you know, and he's one of those guys that loves to accuse the accuser because he knows he's a desperate man and he knows that he's messed up. And instead of doing the right thing, instead of repenting, instead of stepping down, instead of, you know, admitting his faults, admitting his sins, he just wants to keep digging his heels in and saying he's getting messages from the Lord and calling people Christian pythons that want to expose the people that, quite frankly, need to be exposed because they're still behind the pulpit, they're still in their church, they're still running their ministry. They got all these suckers still listening to them, coming to their so called church or whatever else. And I'm listening to some of this and I'm thinking to myself, I mean, this is just me. People say, that's mean and that's judgmental of you. Hey, whatever. It's just mean. First thing I notice is he has the most interesting designer shirts. I don't know where he gets these shirts from, but I've been watching this guy, not really listening to him, paying that much attention to him, but I've seen videos of him in the past and people have shared things in the past or whatever. I've always noticed he has the most interesting shirts. It's like they're like designer shirts. I'm like, where does this guy get these shirts? Are they like homemade? Does he order them somewhere offline or something? They're definitely not your Walmart, you know, Marshalls, TJ Maxx, you know, Ross type shirts. Okay, they're 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 just designer shirts. I mean, maybe Dillard's or Nordstrom or something. I don't know. I have no idea. But that's the first thing I always notice about this guy is where does he get these shirts from? And this last one, man, I couldn't help it, man. If it was any longer, it would look like a wizard cape. Okay, I mean, and Perry, you know, it looks like he's put on a little weight. I mean, not judging him for that. We all do. We all have, you know, what have you, you know, little weight here and there, you know. So he's got this shirt on that I call it like a wizard shirt. And that's what I put. I said, man, all it's missing is the pointed hat and the wand. I mean, it looks like a wizard shirt to me. It's all sparkly and in the light, it just really, you know, it really comes out and it's just like you really pay attention to this purple like sparkly shirt. And I'm just thinking that's the first thing I notice about this guy is his designer shirts, right? It's just who I am. I'm an observant person now. But good old Perry, you know. I mean, I remember Perry from way back, the Manifest shows and all the rest of that stuff. But the thing that really got me about Perry is I've talked about this before, and whatever people believe about a rapture or pre-trib or, you know, whatever type rapture, That's your business. That's between you and the Lord. Whatever. It's not a salvation issue. Uh, you know, it's your. It's whatever. Okay. I've beaten that dead horse. All right. Whatever you believe, that's what you believe. Okay. I, I'm just not going to go there. All right. Me personally, I think you have to prepare to endure to the end, no matter what that end may be for each and every one of us as an individual. And I just think we got more time. I just think we got more time than people think. That's as far as that goes. More time for preparation and more time for, getting your house in order. No. But as far as the return of Jesus, I don't think it's as soon as other people might think. Just my personal opinion. Other people can agree, disagree, whatever. That's just me, all right? That's all I'll say about that. But this guy, he goes as far as to admonish people for not believing in a pre trib rapture. So that's why I talked about being militant about it. I was referring to him. And it's interesting. I mean, I didn't think about it at the time in my mind, but I knew that there were people out there that were militant about their beliefs regarding the pre-trib rapture or what have you. And he's one of the biggest. I mean, he will admonish you. He thinks you're basically, if you don't believe a pre-trib rapture, then you know that you're like, I don't know, you're just you he's militant about it. He's mean. Let's just put it that way. He's mean about it. He thinks you're an idiot. He thinks you just you don't understand the Bible. You're not theologically correct. You're ignorant of the word. I mean, he really believes that that. I mean, you can look it up yourself. I mean, he's been mean to people that don't believe in a pre-trib rapture. And why not? Because the majority of the stuff that he would sell on his site or whatever promotes a pre-trib rapture. The DVDs, the CDs, everything that people would sell before, and now this was years ago, but now, it's more online webinar type stuff, prophetic conferences, seminars, whether it's in person or, like I said, like a webinar or whatever else. Well, of course, if that's the position you've taken, you know, then and that's where you're making your money, that's your bread and butter, well then of course that's what you're going to promote. So anybody that would speak out against that or believe differently, well then they're going to be admonished, right? You see you see how these people are? You see why I don't listen to the majority of them? This is why when people send me stuff, most of it I can ignore, you know, um, because you see how these people are. I hope people are starting to kind of connect the dots, putting two to two together, kind of thing here, because it's kind of like I said before, I'm gonna hit some things kind of hard here because there's so much deception out there, and there's so much, um, I don't know, just what's the word I'm looking for? That it's not only deception, but it's being so staunch on a position that they're like immovable, and that's one thing, but then to admonish other people, you know whether it's in their congregation, in their ministry, outside their ministry, or whatever else, for not thinking the exact same way, well, is not only arrogant and foolish, it just shows what a jerk you are. I mean, let's just be real about it. So, and it shows a major lack of discernment. You have sites like 444 Prophecy News, for instance, okay, and people will send me stuff from that site or whatever. Like I said, 90+% of it I could ignore. One, because it's the exact same thing over and over and over and over again, maybe from the same messenger or maybe from different messengers, but like I said before, I get it. It's the exact same message over and over again about whether it's getting out of California or destruction or earthquakes or volcanoes or whatever else, you know. And you talk about beating that dead horse, you know, it is just like, okay, I get it, you know. And it doesn't have to be consistently posted all the time. Like I said, whether it's from the same message or a different message. People say, "Well, that's confirmation." I get it. It is confirmation, but after a while, it just gets old, you know, where it's constantly coming in, you know, on a prophecy site like 444 Prophecy News or whatever, and I mean, it's just over and over and over and over again. It's just like it just gets old. It gets old for anybody, right? It's like I get it. I get the message. All right. Well, and then on the opposite end of that spectrum, though, you'll have all this death and destruction and chaos and catastrophe and everything else. But then that same site will also promote and will also share supposed visions and dreams or words of knowledge or words from the Lord or whatever, saying that America is going to be restored. You know, because most of it does focus on America, some other areas of the world, but most of it focuses on America. And it's just like, God's going to restore us. We're going to have our greatest days ahead. There's going to be end time revival. There's going to be whatever, stadiums filled and this and that. And it's just like, well, I don't know how you have both. All right. I mean, I'm aware of the falling away. I'm aware of the apostasy. I'm aware that, you know, of those things. I'm not aware of the end time revival. So people can agree, disagree, or whatever. Yes, after all this death and destruction and chaos, and people will finally get right and they'll finally repent, and stadiums will be filled, and there will be great revival. And I'm just like, personally, I don't think so. But like I said, they can agree, disagree, they think what they want. But what boggles my mind though is it's like, how does the same site put out all this? One's right and one's wrong. Okay, how do you appease everyone, and why do you pander to everybody? See, this is why I said this is why and how I can ignore the majority of the stuff people send me, the majority of the stuff they email me or text me or whatever else. I can ignore it. And I'm talking like this because most of the time when people email me stuff or text me stuff, they don't listen to what I say. They don't listen to my videos. They don't listen to what's coming out of my mouth. Maybe it's because they don't like looking at a black screen. Maybe because they think they're too long. Maybe they think I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know. But they don't listen to what I say. Because if they did, they wouldn't send me all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? But it's like people don't care. They find something interesting. They find something entertaining. They find something that maybe tickles their ears. They find something that, you know, that they find, you know, maybe they just want to communicate with. I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but come on. One's right and one's wrong. Okay? I mean, you can't have it both ways. You know, you can't be saying America's going to be destroyed on one hand and it's going to be restored on the other hand. See, and this is the whole thing with the false prophets and all of these people out there. They have a very confusing message to where it fits their agenda and their narrative, and it kind of depends on the pulse of the people to a certain extent. It kind of depends on the atmosphere, and then their minds will change depending upon what most people think. All right, I'll give you an example. Okay, Brandon Biggs, you know, adult version of Caillou. You know, I don't care. All right, I'm gonna make fun of people. People don't like it. That's fine. Whatever. Uncle Fester. Okay, I don't care. All right, because here's why. Because they lead people astray. See, I will mock you if your whole life is nothing but deceiving others. Okay? If all you do is want to deceive others for your own benefit and say you hear from the Lord and say that you are God's messenger or whatever. Well, let's dissect this, okay? Okay. Supposedly the man gets shot in the ear or whatever, or grazes his ear, okay? Now, according to Biggs, when he hits his knees, he got radically saved, right? I mean, people thought he was saved before, but now he gets radically saved when basically he hits his knees. So when he rises up, he's supposed to be a changed man. People say, "Oh no, you're taking that out of context. It didn't mean at that exact point in time." Okay, well, it's been over a year later. When does the radical salvation come in? And people say, "Well, he is radically saved." Really? Where's the fruit? Really? I don't see it. See, and I'm not, and it's not because you know I'm not looking for it. All right, it's because I keep seeing and hearing and reading the most vile and disgusting stuff. It's the company you keep, okay? The company you keep. And it's interesting to me that all of these false prophets or what have you, they all get together and they support each other and they do these prophetic seminars and conferences. Birds of the feather flock together, right? It's the company you keep. So it doesn't surprise me when all of the Amanda Graces and Timothy Dixons and Robin Bullocks and Brandon Biggs and Hank Kunnemans and Catherine Cricks or whatever. It's very interesting now because at one time they're like all supporting each other, but now if they find that they're a threat to each other, they'll actually call each other out. It's hilarious. You've got false prophets calling out false prophets. It's funny. Like when Troy Black calls out Catherine Crick. That's hilarious. You got these false prophets calling each other out. I'm just like, man, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, grab your popcorn and your soda, and just because this is highly stupidly entertaining, to where you got false prophets calling out false prophets. Why? Because they're a threat to each other, you know, just like the same lame pastor ministry or whatever won't step down from the pulpit, you know, because they feel, well, I'm bad, but I'm not as bad as this guy, or I'm bad, but I'm not as bad as this woman. So they justify being able to stay behind the pulpit, excuse me, or keeping their ministry going because who are you to judge me? Like Perry Stone was talking about. Who are you to judge me? It's just like, oh, this happened 20, 30, 40 years ago and it was repented of. Hey, fair enough, man, what you do in your prayer closet, but you never step down. You never stepped down for your ministry. You never publicly repented. You never admitted it openly, you know. And it wasn't some fake thing, I have sinned, or people are crying crocodile tears or whatever. I mean, step down. Step down. You know, be a Tony Evans. I said, as far as I know, he's the only one, a man of honor and integrity, that actually stepped down either before he was going to be exposed or maybe he just realized, I believe in my heart, he had some things that he needed to deal with himself and his family or whatever, and he stepped down. And he's like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I'm not going to stand behind a pulpit. I'm not going to stand in a ministry, being in the under shepherd or whatever. Probably, most of them probably think they're the shepherds. It's their ministry, But I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to, just, keep standing up here and preaching to people like I'm all holier than thou. See, two other things I'm going to get into about the company you keep, because this is how I know about this stuff. All of us when we were kids, we did stupid stuff, right? We hung around the wrong people most likely. At times you got in with the wrong crowd, peer pressure, maybe you wanted friends, you were desperate, so you were willing to compromise yourself. You know, or maybe you just didn't have a lot of options around a neighborhood or whatever, and it's just like, well, I can hang out with this dude, or I can be bored. You know, because way going to the way back machine where there were only 3 or 4 channels on TV. You know, video game systems were new on the market. You know, mom and dad would kick you out of the house to go outside and play. You weren't allowed to stay inside, especially during the summer. You'd have to go ride your bikes or play pickup football games, basketball, baseball, whatever else. Get a bunch of kids together around the neighborhood. You know what I'm talking about? Some of you may, some of you may not, right? Well, being a military kid and moving around all the time, you know, you make friends, you lose friends. You know, you hang out with people. Maybe they weren't even friends; they're more acquaintances. You hang out with people, you know. But in the back of my mind, I always knew that we were moving in 2, 3, 4, whatever years it was going to be. So I never really, you know, invested myself in like long-lasting friendships for the most part because I'm like, I'm out of here, dude. That was the way I thought. I just knew from the time I was 5 years old. I learned very quickly. My dad being in the army, we're not staying here forever. I'm not growing up in one place. You know, it's just it is what it is, right? Well, the biggest culture shock I had as a kid is we were mostly in the South. You know, I mean when my dad first joined, I mean we were in Germany, so I spent like from 5 to 8 years old in Germany, and um, then I think my dad changed his MOS, his military occupational specialty, from military intelligence to he wanted to be a lab tech or whatever. So he went to school back in the States and in Texas. And then we hung out in Florida for a while with my grandparents. And then we went to Texas for a little bit, I think, trying to keep it all squared away, all straight. Then to Oklahoma, then back to Texas. And then I remember when I was 11 years old, finishing up my 6th grade year, my dad got orders to Minnesota, to Minneapolis, Minnesota, you know, to a military interest processing station. And we're like, what the heck, man? We're like living in the South our whole life, or the Midwest, you know, whether it be Texas, Florida, you know, Oklahoma, back to Texas. So I had a very interesting accent, all right? So did my brother, too, I guess, you know. And we moved from Texas to Minnesota, like toward the middle end of my 6th grade year. And man, you talk about a culture shock. Not just for me, but for the people of Minnesota. It was like I was speaking a foreign language to them, right? And there was no post housing. You know, there's no military bases or military army posts in that area. So we live in apartments, right? Whatever we could afford on my dad's salary. It's not like he made a lot of money in the army, you know. So we moved in these apartments, and you know, there's other kids there. You know, we go to New Hope Elementary School, which was within walking distance to where we lived and whatnot. You know, and eventually you're like, I got my brother, you know, he's got me and my younger brother or whatever, but it's like you want to meet other people. You want to see what other kids are around your age or whatever. Oh man, we got mocked, brutally mocked. You know, I mean, we were not welcomed to the neighborhood. See, back then you had to prove yourself either through fighting, and these were tough kids. This wasn't like an affluent neighborhood. I mean, these were young men, young boys raised by single mothers who had deadbeat dads or divorcees or whatever else. You know, these are tough kids. You had to prove yourself. You had to fight to prove yourself. Fist fight. Okay, you had to be tough. All right, and you had to do tough things as boys. You know, and it did not help that we came all the way up from Texas. We were in a military family. These kids were not used to this stuff. They were born and raised in Minnesota, and this is where they lived their life. And so we had to prove ourselves, right? Well, specifically my brother, because let's just be honest, be fair. I mean, that dude, he was like a raging bull. I mean, my brother didn't have any problem fighting. He was a tough dude. He always was. He always still is. He's my younger brother, but this is a dude you don't want to mess with. He's he's pretty built. He's a tough dude. And so we're like, okay, so we have to fight to prove ourselves. We have to fight to join your, not necessarily gang, but just to prove ourselves to be a part of the neighborhood. Man, this sucks. I was like, I can't believe this, but you do what you have to do, right? So, I'm 11, my brother's 8, so at the time when we first get up there, it was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. So we go from Texas to Minnesota, having to deal with the winters and everything else. And that particular year, they had one of the worst snowfalls ever. We're not used to this stuff. We're just not used to it. Plus that we have to fight to survive. And back then it's not like moms and dads had a whole lot of sympathy for things. They're just like, you do what you got to do. Hey, it's like they didn't promote fighting, but it was just part of life. It was part of school. It was part of going to school. It was part of being in a neighborhood. But like I said, it's the company you keep. Well, these, like I said, they weren't exactly Christian kids. We didn't have like we were church going people kind of thing, and these people, they had nothing to do with any of that. So what do you think my brother and I got immersed in? All right, because this is what the kids were doing. They were smoking, they were shoplifting, they were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. What do you think we did? Right? Okay, it's not like we didn't know any better, but it's the company you keep. you know, and so you wanted to prove yourself. And like I said, with our accent, that didn't help. I mean, you go up to some kid and you're trying to meet some kid. Hey, y'all want to come out and play some football? Yeah. Sound like Larry the Cable Guy or something, man. They're gonna look at you like you're from another planet, because that was pretty much my accent at the time. Because I had a Southern accent, I mean, and I mean, it's just the way it was, coming up from Texas, and we were mocked relentlessly, right? So, like I said, in order to be a part of the neighborhood, you compromise yourself and you do things you shouldn't do and you give in to peer pressure, right? Well, that's when you're kids, right? You would hope by the time you become an adult that you think a little differently, you act a little differently, especially when you get saved and you change your life, and the Lord changes your life, and you're more careful about the company you keep. Well, let's look at our society today. These people are supposedly adults, 50s, 60s, 70-year-old people, some close to 80, maybe in their 30s or whatever. But it's the company you keep, right? You want to know about someone's character. You want to know about who they really are, what they're really about. Look who they hang out with. Look who they associate with. Look who they affiliate themselves with. And then you understand about who they really are. Like, okay, I'll just say it, all right? If you hang out with scumbags, most likely you're a scumbag, all right? Let's look at the Epstein, Trump, Maxwell thing, okay? And everybody else affiliated with that on the outside. And look who supports it, look who promotes it, look who makes excuses for it. Right? You see what I'm saying here? It's the company you keep. And if you're powerful enough, if you don't want to be challenged, and if you don't want to be, you won't want to grow as a person, and you consider yourself a dictator, you're a narcissist, you only care about yourself, you only care about your legacy, your name, how much you matter, or whatever, then you're only going to keep yes men and yes women around you if you're powerful enough, right? I mean, let's just call it how it is, all right? It's the company you keep, right? So people say, well, they also say like guilt by association, but a lot of it is and there could be some truth to that, but again, the reason that people that adage is there, the guilt by association is, who do you hang out with? Who are you around? Who do you associate with? You know, who do you go to church with? Who do you support online? Who do you watch when it comes to like pastors or ministries or whatever else? Is this someone mired in scandal, or that people are just going to support them no matter what it is, no matter what they're accused of? Oh, they're just a bunch of false accusers. Not when there's like 30 of them or more, like when Trump's situation, you know? I mean, not when there's like, when there's tons of evidence to support the claims, whether it's Katie Johnson interviews or whether it's, you know, other people coming forward, you know, repeatedly, constantly, over and over again, whether it's against politicians, actors, entertainers, preachers, pastors, whole ministries like IHOP and Mike Bickle. I mean, there's tons of stuff out there. All of it is being exposed now. And then Bickle's sister gets up there and accuses the accusers and talks about how her brother's great and this and that and blah blah blah, and how dare you accuse my brother. It doesn't matter that they're perverts, pedophiles, rapists, scumbags. None of that matters. None of that matters. What matters is that you're accusing my family member, you're accusing my pastor, you're accusing this ministry, you're accusing that. And it's just like, it's the company you keep. And these people, they put themselves out there. It's not like they're minding their own business, sitting in their house, being a dad, a husband, or whatever else, hang out. No, 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 no. They put themselves out there. Big name ministries, hundreds of thousands of subscribers, big name in general, hanging out with all the other big names, going, charging $200 a ticket to go see them and hear their latest bogus prophetic word. They don't hide. They put themselves out there with their false prophecies and their lies and their associations. They want to be popular. They want to be known. They want to be famous. It's the company you keep. So, the birds of a feather thing, right? So, all of this to say, be careful who you listen to. Be careful who you watch. If you get a check in your spirit and says, "Hey, don't watch this guy Tom Sawyer, Ken or whatever people know me as, because he's full of crap," then by all means, don't listen to me. Listen to the Holy Spirit. Listen to what God says. I like what Greg Manarino says. Do your own homework, check it out for yourself, because Greg could be lying to you. I could be lying to you. I'm not. Okay, but you know what I'm saying? But do your own homework, do your own research. Listen to the Holy Spirit. Listen to the Lord. Do what he tells you to do. And that still small voice. And if you get a check in your spirit or whatever, then don't listen to certain people. Don't support them. Don't pay attention to them. That's what I do. I said, people send me whatever they want. I'm telling you straight up. If people have listened to me this long, if they care to listen to me, 90+% of it I ignore or delete, because it's garbage. Not all of it, but a lot of it is garbage. Because I know what these people are about. I know what a lot of these people are about, because I see the company that they keep. I see who they affiliate themselves with. I see who they associate with. So it's like, why am I listening to this? Why am I reading this? Why? I don't need to. Read the word, Listen to men and women that are not lying to you, and support everything they say through the word of God. As much as what they say, they can refer to the word when they're preaching, teaching, whatever else. It comes straight from the word. And if you can't back it up with the word, then it's garbage. Then it's just their opinion, And people say, well, yeah, like you're garbage. It's just your opinion. Fair enough. But I'm trying to help people, though, with my opinion and with my personal experiences to help them from being led astray. You know, I mean, and the last thing I'll get into here is I woke up this morning thinking about actually rewriting, not rewriting, but changing the lyrics, the words to the song America the Beautiful. And I actually had some thoughts in my mind about oh beautiful for spacious skies kind of thing, and just all the catastrophes and all the stuff we're dealing with in America. I mean, this is still a beautiful country, um, but it's being devastated with the fires and the floods, and over the years, the hurricanes, the tornadoes, to a lesser extent, the earthquakes, but I'm sure that's coming as well as the volcanic eruptions, you know. And I started thinking about that. And then after I watched the video from Sean from Revealing Truth talking about Perry Stone and how he's, you know, accusing the Christian pythons of attacking him and his ministry and, you know, and who are you to judge me kind of thing. It's just like, dude, you put yourself out there, okay? You are the one that sinned in front of everybody and wanted to hide it, okay? You were the one that wanted to accuse the accuser. You are the one that wanted to basically dig your heels in and hide your sin and pretend like you're innocent when everybody with half a brain knows you're not. If they've been paying attention to you and your ministry and everything, your so called ministry and what you're about. Okay? So after listening to that, I started thinking to myself, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the movie A Few Good Men. And this is the last thing here. This is what it reminds me of. The Colonel Jessup character played by Jack Nicholson. He comes across as being someone that very prideful, very arrogant, but sure of himself and his command. And it's interesting because when they get him on the stand, if you've ever seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If not, they get him on the stand because they accuse him, he's being accused of ordering something called a code red, which basically allows Marines to discipline their fellow Marines, specifically enlisted men, which is a big no-no. Now, this is not a true story. It's a play that was made into a movie, okay? But does it happen? Honestly, I can't say for sure because I never witnessed it personally. However, being assigned with Marines and being stationed with Marines, even though I didn't witness it personally, I did see the after effects of it happening in a unit, in a field unit, in a combat unit. When I was in the desert, I dealt with the after effects of it. So I know it happened. I just didn't watch it happen. I didn't observe it, okay? What that means is basically when Marines step out of line and they're bringing the unit down, then you give them what's called a blanket party or some type of painful punishment to try to keep them in line. In the movie Full Metal Jacket, you know, they put soap and pillowcases and they held the guy down, held Private Pile down to his rack basically, and they all came and they pummeled him with the soap in the chest, you know, just beat him with the soap and the pillowcases. That's called a code red, okay? That's what they would refer to as the Marines disciplining their fellow Marines, okay? It has long-term psychological effects, as it did in Full Metal Jacket. And the bottom line is simply this. Colonel Jessup, Jack Nicholson's character, he's called on the stand to answer for this, all right? But he's up there defending himself, on the stand where Tom Cruise's character, Lieutenant Caffey, the Navy defense lawyer, because he's got two Marines he's defending that conducted a code red on a fellow Marine and it resulted in death. But what Caffey's trying to do to save these Marines, save his defendants from going to jail for the rest of their lives, is, and these are young Marines, is he's got to try to prove that Jessup gave the order. And Jessup's denying that he ever gave the order. All the way to the point where Caffey preys on his vanity, basically, and, gets him to admit it eventually. But until he admits it, he sits up there all holier than thou, self-righteous, high and mighty, in his uniform with ribbons and not medals, but ribbons, and, they read his accolades and his resume and how great and wonderful this guy is, and his star is on the rise, and he's set to leave this division in Guantanamo Bay as the commanding officer, and he's going to be getting a nice cushy seat in Washington, D.C., and everything else, right? So he's got a lot to lose here, a lot. But when he's up there, he gives a speech, basically, and he talks about how, we're all about honor, and we have a code, and commitment, and this and that. He doesn't necessarily say honor, courage, and commitment, but he says we have code of honor and commitment, and you use these things as a punchline, but this is what we believe in a life, defending others and self-sacrifice, and he preaches this really great sermon, basically talking about how Marines, they do the jobs that nobody else can do or wants to do, and he's not wrong about that. But he puts himself up on this pedestal, like, you can't understand the kind of sacrifice I make, and you question the very freedom I provide you, and then you question the manner in which I provide it. I would just rather you say thank you, and move along your merry way, kind of thing, and but until then, I suggest you pick up a rifle and stand a post, and on and on and on and on it goes, because you don't do what I do, and you're not a Marine, and you don't serve the way I serve, and you're just in Washington, D.C. playing softball games or whatever else, and I'm out there, and which he really isn't, okay? He's a commanding officer in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. He's like, people are trying to kill me and assassinate me. He's really got kind of a cushy job, to be honest, and compared to the rest of his Marines. But he does give the order. He gives the order. But what the government is trying to do, played by Kevin Bacon, so basically the prosecuting attorney, the captain, is prove that these Marines acted on their own and were never given an order. But this is what happened. He did give the order to his lieutenant, played by Kiefer Sutherland, who went to the barracks and told all of the Marines that Santiago, this Marine that was subpar, that wasn't cutting it in the unit, he wasn't to be touched. But then after the other Marines left, he got Santiago's squad leader and as fire team leader together and said, you guys do the code red. Basically, you do what you have to do to get this Marine back in line. So the order was given. It came down from Jessup, went to the lieutenant, who gave it to those two Marines. But all the other Marines heard Santiago wasn't to be touched. So they set these two Marines up. Okay? Now, they didn't expect Santiago to die, but these were young, dumb Marines, and they wound up killing him and trying to discipline him. And then Santiago dies. Technically, Jessup is accountable. He's responsible, as well as the lieutenant, and the two Marines that are on trial for their lives, they're responsible because they wound up taking the life of their fellow Marine, right? But the one who's most responsible is Jessup because he ignored the directive given to him saying no code reds. Marines are not to discipline their own, especially in the enlisted ranks. They're not to discipline their own. So, but Jessup ignores the order and he does what he wants to do. And then when it goes bad, he doesn't want to accept responsibility. Matter of fact, he won't accept responsibility. And the only reason he finally admits to it is because he has so much pride, so much arrogance, that he does not want anybody questioning his orders. Sound familiar? What's happening in Washington, D.C.? What's going to be happening in the other cities soon? Nobody questions my orders. Nobody questions me. The man even said it. You know, I don't get questions. I ask the questions. Nobody questions what I do. Nobody questions what I say. That was Jessup, Jack Nicholson's character, Colonel Jessup. You know, and he finally admits to it because Caffey keeps pushing him and pressing him. You know, and he's saying, "Did you order the code red? Did you order the code? Did you order the code red?" And he finally breaks out and he says, "You're GD right, I did." You know what that means, right? Why? Because he doesn't want his orders questioned. He doesn't want to be questioned. He wants nothing but yes men and yes women around him. Sound familiar? That's the same thing with all the way up from the man sitting at the desk all the way down to the arrogant pastor in charge of the mega church ministry. You know? They don't want to be questioned. Nobody can question them. Nobody can accuse them. Nobody has the right to say anything against them. Who are you to judge me kind of attitude, right? That's what we're dealing with here. A Few Good Men it is the perfect example of that when they're in the courtroom, because he finally admits to it after being pressed and pressed and pressed, because he knows he's got to protect himself. Sound familiar with the Epstein files? He's got to protect himself. He's got to protect himself. And he protects himself and protects himself by lie after lie after lie after lie after lie, right? Until it finally becomes too much. And then he admits it, because his arrogance gets the best of him. His pride gets the best of him. And he's just like, "Who are you to question me? I give the orders. I tell you what to do, and you do it." But he knows that he can't admit it. He knows there's too much on the line, because at the end he gets arrested because the Marine died under his command and he's responsible for that, and also because he went against a directive that came right down from Washington D.C. that Marines cannot discipline other Marines. So it all falls apart. What do you think is going to happen here sometime in the near future? I don't know if it's this month with a Simpsons prediction, which sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not. I don't know if it's next month. I don't know if it's this year. I don't know if it's next year. But what do you think's going to happen? Doesn't pride always go before the fall? Didn't Nebuchadnezzar, become wolf boy in the wilderness, with his nails, growing out, and his hair and everything else, and basically becomes less than human before he's finally brought to his senses? What do you think's going to happen? And what if the man behind the desk doesn't even have that opportunity to come to his so-called senses? And these other people, whether in politics or in the church or the pastor, the preacher, the arrogant fool, whoever it is, they're not given the opportunity. Their opportunity is now. But instead of repenting, they dig their heels in. They keep digging their heels in, accuse the accuser, deny, lie, pretend like you're innocent, Pretend like your stuff doesn't stink. Pretend like everybody else is just against you and wanting to hurt you and wanting to bring you down, you know? Do you get it? Do you see what's happening out there? Do you see the narrative? Do you see why I ignore the majority of it? Because it's childish, it's immature, and people still don't get it. Even the ones that I think are smart and have a brain and have some common sense and wisdom and discernment, they still don't get it. They will defend their man to the teeth. They will defend him no matter what. No matter what the accusation is, no matter what the proof is. Let me rephrase that. No matter what the proof is, no matter what the evidence, they still defend their politician, their little tin god. They still defend their little tin god pastor, preacher, priest, church, ministry, whatever, all the way to the end. They will defend them. It is sick, it is twisted, and it is stupid. But people will continue to do it. Why? Because they have no wisdom, they have no discernment. And this is how you can ignore the majority of the garbage that's out there. Because that's exactly what it is. It's garbage. Look at the proof, look at the evidence right in front of your face. And ultimately, if you have any doubt about that, you know, hopefully you go to the Holy Spirit, you go to the Lord, you go to the Word, you listen to people that, you know, are doing the research and the investigations and finding the proof and the evidence. But ultimately, it's about the company they keep. Just look who they surround themselves with. And in your own personal life, in my life, or whatever, be careful of the company you keep. All right. Y'all have a blessed day. Bye-bye.